Trying to impress me, pulling out all the stops, making my head dizzy when you tell me what you want. I just wanted you to see me, never thought you'd notice. Thought that you should know I'm already sold, so never let me go. You had me at a la 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 la. I can see you trying, finding ways inside my head. Lost and out of focus, I can hear a word you say. Cause I don't care about your game, I just wanted you to see me. Thought that you should know I'm already sold, so never let me go. You had me at a la 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 la. Stop talking, I don't care. With you, my mind is clear.
All right, welcome to the Poly Podcast for Men. This is my beautiful wife, Jolene, and I'm
Hello.
Kip. And so today we're going to be talking about jealousy, and I'm going to say something a little controversial. Jealousy is a weakness. I'll say that again. Jealousy is a weakness. So that's inherently what we're going to be talking about today. Did you have any thoughts about, off the bat, of jealousy that you want to get off the top of your head?
So Kip has a point that jealousy is a weakness, but I want to say that's nothing to be ashamed of. We all have weaknesses, if it's physical, if it's, some activity that you want to dive into and you're new at it, or trying to, learn a new mathematical formula or a new art or whatever. We always are starting somewhere, and having a weakness is not necessarily a negative thing. That should be something to, acknowledge and identify and always work towards improving it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not here saying that jealousy is, it's if you're weak, if you are jealous. I mean, in a sense you are, but that's the starting point. That's the starting point for you to get better. And I'm going to kind of touch on that and give you some kind of tools to help you kind of work on yourself and get better with that. But going back to the theme, jealousy is a weakness, so what exactly is jealousy? Well, it's the anticipation of losing what is considered yours. But ultimately, you don't own another human being. Slavery is illegal. It's over with. You don't own another human being. And regardless of what you see in other kind of men's groups online and everything, jealousy is not romantic. It's not normal. And I will say this.
It is, well,
jealousy is normal.
it is normal.
It is normal. But it's about as normal as not being able to bench 315 when you first go into a gym. It's like, yeah, the first time you go into a gym, you should probably not do that. You should see where you are. But at some point, you should be able to work your way up, i.e. to 315, or in this case, overcoming jealousy. And the way you do that is by working on yourself, and I'll get into that. But I think you were going to say something, Jolene. So please.
Jealousy is an emotion, okay? So we all have different emotions that we go through. They're feelings. It's not wrong and it's not right, okay? So I just want to add that in there.
Right, but if you, and as a guy, and I would think as a woman too, if you're going to be successful in dating multiple people, and I mean successful, meaning you're not complaining about it, you're not struggling, like you kind of do need to overcome jealousy. There's really no way around that. I mean, so I think we have to say that is like, yeah, I mean, are there jealous people in the poly community? Yes.
Absolutely. There's jealous people everywhere.
There's jealous people everywhere. But recognize that just because it's normal, which is like what I see in a lot of these men's groups online now, that where jealousy is that it's normal to kind of want to control your woman, and vice versa. There's books out there that kind of tell women in an indirect way how to control their man, but that is what I would call that is normalized, society normalized insecurity. That's where a bunch of insecure people get together and then pat each other on the back because they're all insecure. It's like to be successful in poly as a man, as I talked about in another video, it's a lot harder for you. And so jealousy, overcoming this, is something that you kind of need to do.
Well, and it's a process. You're just not going to snap your fingers and be over jealousy. It's going to come in different forms that might surprise you, and acknowledging and always working towards understanding where it's coming from, trying to work through it with your partner in a positive and effective way is helpful.
Right.
And it will allow you to be more successful.
Yeah, so there's a good quote that I found by William Penn. It says, "The jealous are troublesome to others, but a torment to themselves." And I think kind of my whole philosophy is freedom, and I think jealousy is one of the main barriers to being free. I don't think jealousy is one of the major parts of also letting go, and you can't be free, you can't let go when you're constantly obsessed with someone or trying to control something which you probably can't control anyway. So another way to look at jealousy, because I think we've got to zoom in and really look at what it is. I think a lot of people talk about it and they think they know what it is, but let's zoom in a little bit and talk about what this is. So jealousy is perceived equity, because you think it's fair to yourself, it's fair to them. It's like, why can't you just pursue your own way of thinking, your own happiness? Why are you preventing someone from preventing their own happiness? And I know that's normal in our society, but if you think about it, like, think how common that is. I mean, like, even like, I think we all know when you see someone walking down the street and like a couple, and the guy has like the clutch on the hand or over the shoulder, and you can kind of tell, like, this is my girl. Like, they don't even need to say that, but we've all seen that before, and it's rather obvious, right? Because body language is actually hard to hide, and we've all seen that. But what is going on there? It's like that dude holding the woman like that, signaling, this is mine. Is that a confident guy? So what do you think about that from a woman's perspective? Like, we've all seen that couple. We see them all the time.
Well, I mean, okay, so there's ways to show affection in public, and, holding hands, our arm around, your partner, are all ways that we show affection. If it can be misinterpreted as possession or affection, again, that is up to the person that is viewing it and their perspective. However, possessing somebody or using that in an outwardly manner is not, how you want to display your affection with your partner. There's many ways to show affection without being possessive.
So do you think you can articulate the difference between possession and affection?
I mean, that's kind of hard because
sometimes it looks like the same thing.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It really is all about the person that is witnessing it and their perspective, right? obviously if someone looks extremely uncomfortable and doesn't want to be affectionate with their partner in public, and their partner is kind of forcing their affection on them to kind of show that they own them or they possess them, that's not attractive, and that's not fun for, that person that is, subject to that type of behavior, right? There is ways to show affection in public that is not in a possessive manner. It's kind of hard to articulate.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, but I think there's something that kind of illustrates that. It's kind of like ballroom dancing in a sense, where if you ever watch ballroom dancing,
That's a good point.
There's an art to it, and generally in ballroom dancing, the man leads, and there's symbolic elements to that, which are stereotypical, but also kind of hold true universally across a lot of cultures. But one of the key parts of ballroom dancing is that the man will lead, but a lot of times part of the movements is he kind of will spin around and let her go. And then she'll come back to him, it's the same way with affection and possession. Someone who's possessive is not going to let her go.
Well, it's a give and a take, right? So ballroom dancing, it's, yes, you have a partner that's leading, but there's kind of that give and take, and it flows, and you can see it, right? And I think that's the important difference.
Yeah, and I think just going back to the ballroom dancing analogy is you also see it with different types of ballroom dancing where there's, obviously I'm biased and ethically non-monogamous and polyway, but a lot of times there's partner switching in these things where you might switch your partners,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Which is always fun. And that, I mean, if you've been there and been in an environment where they're doing salsa dancing or swing dance and you're just switching partners, if you've ever done this and participate, it's really fun. I mean, because you get to experience different energies with other people and different partners, and you actually get to really feel, you're in this elevated sense of excitement, which you wouldn't feel if you would dance with the same partner all night. And I think there's some kind of connection to, poly dating and ethically non-monogamous dating. So what I want you to think about is that who do we look up to? I think this is a good illustrative example. Who do we look up to? We generally look up to rock stars, pop stars. Some people look up to strippers in a way, and I'm not, that's a good thing actually, because I think that I used to work at a strip club and bounce there when I was in college. And one of the things that I noticed is that just about every woman that came in there, like that wasn't a stripper, that was there visiting, like at least wanted to get up on stage. A lot of them did try to get up on stage and do it, and like the reason that is, like I worked there long enough to understand this, is that women see the power by going up on stage. And that these strippers, they command the room. They know every guy in there, wants to fuck them. Like, and most women really want to feel what that feels like. And that's a good feeling. But so what do you think about that? Like, I mean, have you ever been to a strip club? Have you?
I have. I have never wanted to get up there because I am shy in public in that way. There's other ways that I like to be exhibitionist, but dancing in public is definitely not one of them.
but you see what's going on there, right?
Yes, I see the power dynamic.
The feminine power, you see it, right?
Yes,
it's a real thing.
And then there's other ways that women can experience that other than getting up in a strip club and dancing. But there's many other ways that can be experienced. So yes, I do. I understand that dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's something powerful about that, and I think that there's also this kind of running joke about like strippers, because I hear this when I'm with guys, and I would call this the insecure normal guy talk. Is they'll kind of like trash talk or kind of shit on the stripper, when in reality, if you've ever tried as a guy to date a stripper, you realize that they're actually the hardest to date. So when I hear a guy say something like, "Oh, a stripper," and they kind of like badmouth them, like strippers are the hardest to date. You know why? Because there's dudes in there every single night trying to date them. Like that's so, and you're talking about guys that probably have a lot of money to throw around trying to date them, and like they are one of the hardest to date. But of course, if you don't date a lot of women, you make these statements like, oh, strippers, they're this, they're that, they slut shame them and all this. It's like, dude, I can tell when a guy says that he has very little experience with women, you know. And going back to jealousy, there's probably an element of jealousy, knowing that he knows he can never date a stripper. They're too free for him. He's too insecure to even be there, you know. So, speaking of freedom, like, so going back to like the rock stars, look at who we emulate as a society, especially in the West. I mean, and even pretty much around the world now, is that it's rock stars. I mean, and I think you even have to include the popularity of OnlyFans. Like, another group that gets shit on, but honestly, there's a lot of people paying money for that. You know, and let's be honest, those guys that are paying money for that, like, they're probably not doing too well with money. I mean, you know, or they're not doing too well with women, is what I mean. To give their money away like that. Like, do you have any thoughts on that with men and the OnlyFans phenomenon? Because I think this ties into.
Well, I mean, sex sells.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just it. Sex sells. I mean, I don't know there's any more to say on that. You know, I don't necessarily.
But it's not just sex. It's female sex. Like the dudes that are on OnlyFans, the ones that are making money, they're performing to a gay male audience. Like, straight men aren't really making that much money.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying, so it's not like male women's sex, same thing. It's not.
No,
it's not the same.
In general, sex sells generally.
Female sex sells. Yes.
Well, I mean, so does male sex. I think gay sex sells.
But like a straight man doing stuff is not going to be like. How many women are going to sign up to watch how many straight women are going to sign up to watch a guy? Not too many.
I don't know.
I mean,
I personally wouldn't do that. However, sex sells across the board.
Most women wouldn't. That's the point.
Yeah, but sex sells across the board is that's just the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. Like, there's a reason with the whole Taylor Swift and her AI-generated nude images came out. It was Taylor Swift. It wasn't Travis Kelce, right? Like, there's a reason why it's Taylor Swift, the woman, and not Travis Kelce, the guy. Although I'm sure you could find that out there if you wanted to. But the reason it's not news is because it's just not as appealing. Let's be honest there. So there's this term compersion that's talked about in the poly community. It's one of our weird lingo terms we have. And Julian, I think can you describe compersion? I think you have a good definition.
Well, compersion is being genuinely happy and excited for your partner's other relationships. Okay, that can be friendships, they can be romantic relationships, they can be whatever kind of relationship there is. It's a genuine feeling of happy and joy for that person that does not necessarily include you. And that can be felt, you know, and again, in different type of relationships, multiple relationships.
It's having joy, experiencing joy for other people.
Correct, yeah.
You know, and like, I think one of the elements to know that you're inherently free is that you can really experience joy for other people, even people that you may be dating the same person with. In fact, you can see that the connection there is a pretty awesome feeling. And that's why there's this term, compersion. But it's not just compersion with that. I mean, it goes outside in society to have general compassion towards everybody. Now, you got to have boundaries with that and everything. But like, when you start walking around with genuine compassion, which you kind of need to be free yourself to have genuine compassion for other people, you'll notice a whole new world that opens up to you. And so, but the thing is, you don't get compersion when you're insecure and jealous. like you're not going to experience that.
You won't receive compersion, is that what you mean? Or you won't be able to give? I think it's
You won't
both.
be able to experience compersion.
Okay, both. Giving and receiving.
Right. You won't be, I mean, on a selfish matter, you won't be able to experience it. You won't be able to experience the joy that comes with.
Right, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, so if you can't experience it, you're definitely not going to give it,
Yeah, that's true.
So in a way, like overcoming jealousy unlocks a lot of this freeing thing to where you become a very, you could say, interesting person, charismatic. Like you don't. So if you think about it, like, why are people attracted to cults? Does everybody think about, like, what is the main? I love talking about cults. So
Yes, he does.
This is
That's why I'm chuckling.
Yeah. Yeah, so I love talking about cults because, like, they're fascinating, right? They're like, they got people to join and they manipulated the hell out of them. But, like, what is usually the initial allure of a cult? It's usually freedom, right? It's usually freedom.
I would say belonging.
Well, belonging to a different kind of freeing group. If you think about like Jim Jones, or it's just like, we can go there and then be free, because a lot of the Jim Jones stuff started like in conjunction
that's
with
the perception.
Well, but it's perceived freedom.
Right.
That's the key. It's perceived freedom, because once you get in there and they lock you in, like they're controlling and manipulating you, just like a bad relationship.
Well, but the motivation is to be
free.
Yes, and to have a sense of belonging, to have a sense of purpose.
Right. So if you take it, so the difference is perceived freedom, which is what people want, and real freedom, which is what, like, true charisma comes out of. And so what's the difference there? Is that perceived freedom attracts rather insecure people, because they're trying to basically delegate their own freedom work. And freedom work is what I call it. It's something you have to do with yourself.
It's internal.
It's internal. Whereas a lot of people join these cults in the search for freedom, which we should be searching for. But they end up getting involved in these cults because they're insecure and they're looking for the answer outside. And then they realize, I got sucked in, and then they start believing, and then it's a point. A lot of times they're very hard to get out of because of the controlling and manipulation. So hopefully you start to see the comparisons here between, like, a cult and a bad relationship. There's a lot of the same stuff that goes on there. And so my point is that by you being free, you getting rid of your jealousy, that is actual freedom. That's the difference. And when you're actually free, you're confident, you establish healthy boundaries. Mm-hmm. Part of having the healthy boundaries is you can identify what a cult is. I know that someone that doesn't have healthy boundaries, i.e. they're insecure, they're not well in here, they have a lot of jealousy, those are the people that get taken advantage of, because they're easy to take advantage of. When you're secure and you're not jealous, you have boundaries and you can identify those red flags really early on. And same thing in relationships. So yes, I am comparing bad relationships with a cult, because I think we can all see that the control and manipulation of a cult is similar to, like, a bad relationship. So there's my cult thing. I will try not to talk about cults every video. People might perceive that I'm trying to start a cult, But if I were to start a cult, it would be good, and it would be about freedom, if I were,
Oh, boy.
And it probably would be a sex cult, to be fair. But what do you think about that?
Okay, let's move on.
What's wrong with a sex cult?
Oh, man.
So, really, jealousy and freedom, it's about the more you love yourself, and I mean, like, actually love yourself, the less jealous you'll be. I mean, jealousy is caused by immaturity. Like we spoke on it earlier, there is an element of insecurity, and being jealous is a natural part of growing up. Like, we don't just enter the world, we don't know what's going on. It takes us many years to figure out what's going on in the world. But one of those things that we should evolve out of, especially as adults, some point, and a part of maturity is evolve out of jealousy. And that's a journey that you start by trying to get to know yourself. And I'm going to talk about a process here later on. But it's getting better into things that you can actually control. And mastering, part of the whole thing is like a simple kind of basic self-help stuff is mastering what you can control and mastering what you can't control, and then learning and being an expert at identifying which are those. And a lot of us get those things mixed up, which is i.e. jealousy. I think I can control her, so I'm going to manipulate her into not going out on dates, right? So you kind of see where we're going with this.
So yeah, that's out of like. The only thing that you really control is yourself and your behavior and your reactions. That's the key to understanding what is something that's in your control.
Right. I mean, jealousy is, I think we've all kind of experienced a little bit. It's that you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach. It's kind of like anxiety. But you feel sorry for yourself at the same time. So it's a combination of anxiety and depression. But so think of how awful that actually feels. I mean, I think a lot of us have maybe sat home one night with some girl they were dating and we didn't know where she was. Maybe she's out with some other guy, and we have this horrible feeling of and it's an awful feeling. Like it just captures everything. Like you can't sleep, you can't do anything. That's a horrible feeling. So that alone is a place to start of why you should overcome this. I think that don't stop buying into this normalized societal insecurity that's going on out there. And I really wanted to make this message because I feel like a lot of guys I talk to feel like they should be controlling their women as a natural thing. It's like, dude, even if you could control her, you're not going to. You don't live in Saudi Arabia. You don't live in Afghanistan. This isn't the Middle Ages. You literally don't have control over women. But we still see that in the culture, don't we, Jolene?
We do. So I think it's important to again acknowledge that you have these feelings, and that feeling that Kip described. I mean, women, we have the same feeling. And it's important to try to acknowledge it and identify where that comes from. A lot of times it's going to come from, your own self-confidence, how you feel about yourself. And those are all things that you also can work in tandem to help you to try to manage and overcome. I mean, you keep using the word overcome, and, I don't know if it's fair to say that you will overcome this and it'll never be an issue again.
It's a process.
It is a process. But things can trigger different activities or different events or different relationships can trigger, again, once you thought that you have overcome and have dealt with, can re-trigger some feelings of jealousy. And
that's true.
And that's what I mean. So again, it's one thing to say, you've got to overcome it, but you can't do that without really identifying and acknowledging it, right? It's not wrong. It's not right. You shouldn't feel bad about it. You shouldn't be ashamed. These are just emotions, but really to identify where it stems from, and try to work on that piece.
Yeah. So I think about 10 years ago, I would say probably about 12 years ago, I thought I had pretty much overcome jealousy, because I was I don't really get jealous, and at this point I was I don't really get jealous. We've done full swaps, and so jealousy didn't emerge. But then and this is probably about 10 years ago, there were times where I was maybe feeling I started a new job and I was working a lot. I wasn't getting a lot of sleep, and there were times where I felt the jealousy start popping up.
With me?
Yeah, with you, and there was other situations where that had happened too, and so it was like, okay, so I'm not, the jealousy when I wasn't feeling well, I wasn't 100%, would emerge sometimes. And it was, I was like, man, I thought I had gotten rid of this. And what I realized is that when you're not feeling well, some of these things emerging is somewhat natural. Like when you're not feeling well, when you're sick, when you're tired, when you're depressed, when you have these valley stages. But what I learned as I kept working on myself, is that I sometimes I still get that way a tiny bit. But like I realize that, number one, this is a stage I'm going through, that it'll come out of it, and I have healthy coping mechanisms. I know how to work with that. I work out on a daily basis. I make sure I get enough sleep. I keep doing like my writing and reading. Like I continue my habits, and even if it hurts a little bit during that time, it reemerges. And I'm someone, I think that I've pretty much fully gotten over jealousy. It still reemerges to some extent, but I have the coping tools now to manage that.
So that's important, correct? So it magnifies when you're in a low place. You're stressed with work. You're stressed with family dynamics. It could be another relationship. You're not eating well. You're not taking care of yourself. All these can magnify these feelings and emotions, especially jealousy. And understanding, again, and acknowledging it is a first step, and having good habits in place to help you process and manage those feelings will help you be more successful. But that's a good point. And that's what I mean by, you never overcome it. Some activity or some event can trigger it. And again, understanding why that's happening.
Right. I think that's good. So, so I want to kind of want to address a few more things, and we'll try to get into like the practical elements of getting over jealousy. So I just want some food for thought. I will kind of want to be a little academic here with you. If jealousy was a political philosophy, and I'm also asking you this, Jolene, if jealousy was a political philosophy, what philosophy would that be? Fascist, maybe?
Yeah, I could see that.
Communist, maybe?
Yeah.
Right, because what inherently do we dislike about, like, like people like the government or anybody stepping on our civil rights, our what we perceive to be freedom, our civil rights? We don't like that. We think we should have an autonomy to where there's a limit to the government controlling us,
your
right?
actions and your behavior.
I mean, just think some of the movements in the recent years. Like at one point in time, with regards to relationships, interracial relationships were legal by law. Like you could be put in jail for having an interracial marriage years ago, right? Like, is the concept of that behind it is freedom? No. Just think of recently with the LGBTQ community and gay marriage. Like, it wasn't that long ago, like 12 years ago, or maybe even less, gay marriage was illegal. Is that in the spirit of freedom? No. So you can see that there's the oppressive element that government has, which wants to control in some ways maybe what you do in the bedroom. Who you can marry. Now, hold on. Now, take a second. Doesn't that sound like a bad relationship? A very controlling relationship? They're doing the same thing. They're trying to control what you do in the bedroom. They're trying to control who you see, who else you see. You start to see some. So, if you think about, like, there's a lot of people out there. I'm just going to throw this out there, and this is probably another controversial statement. But if you're inherently a pro-freedom guy, a pro-libertarian guy, like, are you actually really, if you live in a monogamous marriage where insecurity is the thing that holds you, your partner and you back from dating other people, is that actually free? Because you literally have that freedom here in the United States. But why is this so rarely practiced then? If freedom is so embodied, even amongst the extreme libertarians, right? So I think there's an intellectual recognition here that nobody likes having their bodies controlled, what they do in the bedroom controlled. So it's no different in a good, solid relationship. I mean, just think about the wars that have been committed about encroaching government interference. Think of all the freedom movements, the civil rights movement of just encroaching government. Like, we inherently, we say that jealousy is natural. It's also natural for us to stand up for, oppressive relationships and oppressive governments. And if you're in a relationship with someone who's jealous, that's also oppressive, you're not free. And neither are they. What are your thoughts, Jolene?
I think you've covered that.
Okay. So and just to paint a picture, and we're going to go into some of the practical elements here, but I want just to paint a picture real quick of this visual image. Jealousy is like a dark room, and overcoming it is like opening the door and shedding light into the dark room. And a lot of times that's uncomfortable. It's very hard to do that. Like we're like a vampire. The dark room opens up and the sunlight burns. It burns. But know in the end that that's the first step to you overcoming this. So what I just did there is like, this is a process for you to find out, start overcoming jealousy. Your first step is to actually go and try to identify, what are these insecurities that I have? Where do they stem from? And once you identify what those insecurities are, you can start working on them. Very similar to when you get injured, the doctor identifies what the injury is, and then once it heals, you start physical therapy to make it better. It's the same process here.
So, and another way to look at it is, it's a way to get to know yourself better, to do work for yourself. The pain and the discomfort that you may feel from it can be an opportunity to really get to know yourself and address and identify why you are, feeling these feelings. And through that process, I think it's very important that you're kind with yourself. Again, know that this is not wrong and this is not right. And, having negative reinforcement, like I shouldn't be feeling this way. And, it is what it is. So you have to acknowledge it and be okay and be kind with yourself, to really try to open up and be honest with yourself, which also is very hard to do. In the poly relationship, that is one of the key things that will allow you to continue to be successful through, multiple relationships, is being honest with yourself and being able to communicate that without shame and without judgment of your own self.
Yeah, that's a hard process to do, but that is one of the steps that's required. Is a lot of times, and I think one of the steps to overcoming this is identifying where society has programmed you, has kind of overrided your own basic programming. Is when you're like, you edit your own thoughts. I shouldn't feel this way.
Right.
Right. Like that's society telling you shouldn't feel this way. So if you feel jealous, like I said earlier, this is not saying to shame you, I shouldn't feel this way. That's a sign that you have to go work on it. And usually by doing that, that means you embrace it to start getting better.
It's an opportunity.
It's a positive opportunity. And going back to the gym analogy, I know not everybody likes gym analogies, but like when you first go into a gym, you haven't worked out before, you're not going to go in and bench 315. Like you might be working on that for years and years before you ever get there. But it's a process, just like overcoming jealousy and these insecurities. And you're not going to get 315. Well, what is the equivalent of editing and like not liking yourself in the gym? and be like, oh, I'm a piece of shit because I can't bench 135. Well, it's your first time in there.
Yeah.
Like, like that's a sense of entitlement. That you don't spend any work and you come in and you got to start somewhere and say, like, recognize, man, this is where humbleness comes in. Humbleness is part of this process.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you know what? I'm weak, but man, I'm going to come in. I'm going to put a healthy weight, so I don't get injured. I'm going to start there, take it step by step. That's what this is about, step by step work. So speaking of steps, let me give a step out there. I think this is probably should be your first step, is lock yourself in a room, just yourself, and you might have to allocate and set some boundaries up with your kids, with the other partners, and so it's completely quiet. Go into a pen and pad, and maybe you just have some music in there going, but try to keep any distractions, including the internet and your phone, out of there, and start writing without thought. Anytime you get a thought about it, you're editing yourself or you're judging yourself, write that down. But start writing and start trying to get to the bottom of where do these insecurities stem from. And once you start identifying with those insecurities, then you're going to realize that alone is like a key that unlocks, and you'll almost feel like 30-40% better just by doing that. But you got to put the work in to go sit by yourself and really put the pen to pad. And I recommend a pen to pad because it's more natural than a computer, and the computer, I think, poses some distraction, especially if you're connected to the internet. Like you start going in there, and all of a sudden you go to YouPorn or whatever. Like that's not really helping, right? So, but you got to find some way. And there's not a way to do this. You can write in storytelling, write about your traumas. You can tell a story. I think it's good. Hey, you can draw pictures. If you're a picture guy, and you can say, oh, I feel this, and it moves from here. Feel free to diagram, but you got to put the time in to start getting to know yourself. And the more you get to know yourself, the better you'll be able to come up with techniques and processes that work for you versus doing what someone else is work. So an example of this is that way back in the day when I was in the Army, it was my girlfriend's friend who I was dating gave me this journal, and it had the Serenity Prayer, which the Serenity Prayer is I'm not very religious, but the Serenity Prayer is great because it really teaches you and reminds you to embrace what you can control, master that, and let go of the things you can't control. And so anyway, I had this journal, and so I started journaling when I was in Iraq. And I kept journaling for a while, and I still kind of journal in a way. And I went back a few years ago and started looking at my early journal writings, and I realized how self-editing I was then. I was almost like writing to an audience, so like what I thought people wanted to hear. And it's like, this is my early stages where it was just me and a pen and a pad, and I was still writing as if like somebody was watching me, and I was still a little ashamed of myself. But it was weird going back and looking at that. I was like, man, I was telling a lot of lies to myself back then, but like over the years, the more I wrote, the more honest, the less judgmental of myself I became. And in terms of less judgmental I was of other people. So that is definitely a process. Do you have a process of overcoming jealousy? I mean, there's a few other things I want to touch on, but I didn't know if you had a...
Well, I mean, it's really, again, I mean, I think I've, kind of outlined, my process is identifying why I'm feeling this way, not judging myself, trying to understand, where it's coming from. I'm not a big writer. I've never really been into journaling. But my process, I find to work through a lot of, some emotional issues that I'm having, or even, trying to put a process down about how I'm going to manage some task at work. When I'm physically active, this is when my mind is working and things are quiet for me, and I can start really diving into, okay, why did I behave this way for this, this experience that I had, if it was especially a negative one, or working through jealousy, or working through a task at work that I'm not familiar with, really trying to break down those pieces when I'm physically active. That is very beneficial for me. And that has helped me process. That's kind of my own process. I think journaling is one of them. And it could look something very different from what Kip and I are saying that is our experience. But it really is an opportunity that, I am with myself, right? So I'm not typically, I'm not engaging with somebody else. It is, I could be taking a fitness class, but it's just me. I'm moving, I'm thinking, I'm in my own brain. I'm not having a conversation with anybody else, or out walking our dog, for a few miles and really processing some things that I've been, struggling with. So they can look, different, but really taking the time to finding something that works would be a step to be more successful in managing these.
Yeah, I think there's a good, so there's different, I'm a little biased. I prefer writing. I fancy myself a writer, so I like writing, the pen to pad. And Jolene's not. So, the whole point is that you go into a place that you're not going to be distracted, and you start doing some self-reflection. And so I think there's one step to the self-reflection is the goal is to find your insecurities and then shine the light on those insecurities, so to speak.
Yes.
Like that's one part. So, and the second part of getting to know yourself and this process to getting to know yourself is doing a worst case scenario exercise. I think this is always good. It's like, so you think about you think about your partner, what is the worst case scenario with them?
Right. Yes.
So in one case, it'd be, my partner having sex, performing oral sex on this person or receiving it. And that might be your worst case scenario. I think like back in the day, in my high school days, that might have been like something, So there's nothing to be ashamed of if you feel that way. That's a very normal thing. But so you might write that down, or you might keep a record of how that feels. So go there in your mind and go there and experience that pain of how that would feel to see your partner doing this. Pay attention to your feelings during this time. And then recognizing it, take time to really sit there with that uncomfortable feeling. And it may help to write it out and explore it, or however maybe you talk about it into a microphone. However you want to do it. But take a second to feel that worst case scenario, how bad it feels. And then think about intellectually afterwards, like, wow, especially when you think about the benefits. What if I could get over that and I could have another partner? I could be with another partner at that same time. And you start thinking about the actual benefits, and what if I was able to do this, which in terms allowing your partner's freedom will make you more attractive, which in terms will make you have more partners. And then this cycle, once it gets rolling, it really builds momentum. As you get this day, it's like, wow, it's no wonder I don't get jealous, But you have to go in and try to find that, and then go through like, what is the worst case scenario? And then for me, worst case scenario, she's having sex with someone else, and like at this point, that's nothing. Why? Because I live my own awesome life. I have my own sex with awesome people, and sometimes we have sex together, and that opens up, this feeling of freedom, which you can't, it's a great feeling, but you've got to have this is the first step to that process is, trying to identify those insecurities, so just to recap real quick, you have one, trying to find out and identify what those insecurities are and shed light on them. Two is doing the worst case scenario exercise and really paying attention to how you feel. Don't fight it. Embrace it, and then take steps from there. I think you'll see that once you start doing a formal process of this, it starts becoming easier and easier. Okay, so some other tips to this is if you're in a couple relationship, maybe start going out, like look on swinger websites, go to swinger parties, and just you don't have to go in and engage in the parties, although that there is something to be learned there about jealousy about that. But maybe just go on a date. Just go on a date, no pressure. Try to go on a date with another couple. Learn hey, a lot of monogamous, especially men, they don't know how to flirt. If you don't know how to flirt, like, guess what? You're not going to do well when you're trying to date multiple women. You actually need that's an art. So so go on a date with this couple, practice flirting. See how this new energy, especially if there's an attraction all around, see how this feels, see how it feels on your partner, recognize how it feels for them, this fresh new energy. And think about how that combined can take you guys to a whole nother level of enlightenment within your relationship, and enlightenment in terms of letting go. So one of the reasons I'm including with this is my general philosophy of freedom and poly for men is that poly for men is hard, and you have to be better than average to kind of do this. And so I'm trying to give you some motivation and tools to assist as you go forward with this. And because here's the thing, when you're good with women, it makes overcoming jealousy a lot easier. If you're not good with women and you're sitting at home by yourself at night, drinking a Miller Ultra or a glass of wine or a bottle of wine, whatever your kind of bad coping mechanism is. Whiskey. Talking to men. And your partner's out on a date having an awesome time and maybe having awesome sex. That probably, you're not going to, that may make it harder when you're, So being good with women obviously will help this process tremendously. It's not the only key, because there's people who are good with women who are jealous, but your whole process would be better if you're good with women. It's one of the techniques, or it's one of the elements you get better at that. It makes it a lot easier to overcome jealousy. Do you have any other thoughts? And I got my final thoughts regarding jealousy. But do you have any?
I would say, kind of circling back to worst case scenario, right? Kind of doing the what if game, and don't be ashamed of it, don't be scared of it. Also circling back to, go out and have experiences, go out on dates. You can go to events and purely socialize. You don't need to, be sexual with anybody or even with your partner in public. That also can kind of understand, have that kind of a shared experience. And the shared experience, acknowledge that could be very different. Mm-hmm. Your partner could be super excited and social, and you're, on the other spectrum, very nervous, don't want to socialize. These are all things that can happen. And again, use these opportunities to get to know each other better, right? And not use these opportunities to, cause conflict. Another, thing that I would suggest is, being around your partner when they are with another partner. Sometimes, I've experienced this before. Kip has had a partner and he's come home and super excited, and they have all this energy, which is new relationship energy, another poly term, and there's some feeling of, this girl could be better than me, and what if he likes her more, and all these feelings kind of can come up. And what I like to do in these situations is obviously be happy for Kip and want to share this positive energy, but at the same time, hey, I would really like to meet this person, because once you remove this, what these ideas in your mind that you're making, that this person is better than you or more attractive or whatever you're telling yourself, once you actually meet them and get to realize that, man, this person is a really nice person, you connect in different ways, you share different interests, all of that what if is gone. It kind of, like Kip said, you open up the curtain and you see, okay, what's in front of you. When you want to adamantly, or you choose to say, I don't want to meet your partners, I don't want to have to deal with them, I don't want to hear anything about them, you can still perpetuate those feelings and these ideas of who they really are, which can cause more negative feelings for yourself, instead of saying, you know what, let me embrace this person, let me get to know this person. And then you see, oh, I shouldn't be afraid of this person. This person is a great person, and Kip should be happy, and they should be excited, and all this new energy is a positive thing. And it's a positive thing for you individually as well, because Kip will bring this back into our relationship. So that has also been very helpful in a way to kind of manage these feelings of jealousy, or, manage my own insecurities.
So the new relation energy. Yeah, that new relationship energy. What that is scientifically, at least for men, is increased testosterone. Like, there's plenty of songs written about how they feel like a younger man. There's a lot of songs written about this, that, I feel like a younger man when I just met this new woman, right? That it's literally testosterone.
Well, it's testosterone. It's endorphins.
It's endorphins.
It's...
So some good news for poly men. I just read a study that showed polyamorous men have I believe like a 10 to 15% increase on testosterone versus monogamous men. So that's a.
I didn't read the study.
That's a plus, and I think a lot of that has to do probably with new relationship energy. Like,
endorphins too.
Endorphins, yeah. But endorphins generally increase testosterone, and it probably occurs for women. Which, if you guys don't know this, that when women are injected with testosterone, they get really horny, right? So, just a fun fact to throw out there. Okay, anything else? I just want to give a following statement, just kind of to wrap this up.
I don't have anything else to add.
All right, so when you're not jealous, everything you do is better. Sex, music festivals, just general socializing. That can be fun. The more free you are, the more free people will want to be around you. Now, fair warning, is that when the more free you become, insecure people will start not liking you. But this literally acts as a funnel or filter, that when you become free and evolved and not jealous, and you've mastered the art of letting go, guess what? You filter in other free people, and you filter out the people that are unfree. And that is the beauty of what we do, is what I do as a poly relationship, what we do. And part of the reason I'm doing this podcast is I want to share this beauty with you. I do, and I have it, to be fair, I want you to be free, because it'll inherently, I think, make the world a better place. But I also have a selfish motivation in that the more people that are free, the more connections we can have with people, and our life is just inherently just so much more fulfilled, and we get these great elements of the sense of awe. And there's been some research on the sense of awe, which you get like at music festivals and seeing serene, beautiful places and everything. And that sense of awe is just so much greatly amplified and increased. So I hope you enjoyed the video on jealousy. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know. And if you want me to cover a topic, let us know. So please like and subscribe the video if you like what I did here. So thank you.